On what should have been a serene Christmas day in 2025, the mountain resort community of Wrightwood has instead become the epicenter of a natural disaster. A powerful atmospheric river, a plume of dense moisture originating from the tropical Pacific, slammed into the San Gabriel Mountains on December 24th and 25th, triggering catastrophic flash floods and debris flows that have left the town isolated and reeling. The disaster was a perfect storm of meteorological and geological factors. Following the devastating Palisades and Eaton fires earlier in 2025, the slopes surrounding Wrightwood were stripped of vegetation. This created a burn scar effect, where the soil becomes hydrophobic, unable to absorb water. As the storm system hit the steep topography of the Swarthout Canyon and the Sheep Creek Wash, it unleashed an urban waterfall. Meteorologists recorded rainfall rates exceeding 1.2 inches per hour during the peak of the storm on Christmas Eve. By the morning of December 25, 2025, Wrightwood had received a staggering 8 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. The crisis began at approximately 8:45 p.m. on December 24th. Residents reported hearing a sound like a freight train as the Sheep Creek Wash breached its banks. Within minutes, a wall of mud, boulders, and uprooted trees surged down Highway 138 and onto local residential streets. "We were opening one early gift when the power flickered and we heard the sirens," says Elena Rodriguez, a local resident whose home was partially buried in mud. "By the time we looked out the window, the street was a river. We didn't have time to grab anything but the dog." The San Bernardino County Fire Department launched immediate swift water rescue operations. High-clearance vehicles and helicopters were deployed to rescue families trapped in their attics or on rooftops as the freezing water rose. As of the evening of December 25th, Wrightwood remains largely cut off from the rest of the state. Highway 138. Large sections of the highway have been washed away near the intersection of Lone Pine Canyon Road. The pavement literally crumbled under the force of the mudflo. Power and utilities. Southern California Edison reported that over 4,500 residents in the Wrightwood and Phelan areas are without power after mudslides toppled transmission lines. Water contamination. A boil water notice has been issued for the entire community after floodwaters compromised the local reservoir and piping systems. Governor Gavin Newsom's emergency declaration on Christmas morning prioritized Wrightwood for state resources. However, the physical act of evacuation proved treacherous. The primary evacuation route to Phelan was blocked by a massive debris flow near the Big Pines area. Emergency crews managed to establish a temporary bypass, guiding residents toward the San Bernardino County Fairgrounds in Victorville, which has been converted into a massive Red Cross shelter. Volunteers at the shelter are providing hot meals, dry clothing, and crisis counseling for hundreds of displaced families who lost their homes on the holiday. Environmental scientists warn that this is just the beginning. The 2025 wildfire season left the San Gabriel Mountains extremely vulnerable. Without the root systems of pine and manzanita trees to hold the soil, the mountain is essentially liquefying during heavy rains. What we are seeing in Wrightwood is a classic debris flow, says Dr. Sarah Chun, a geologist at Caltech. It's not just water. It's a mixture of rocks, trees, and sediment that has the consistency of wet concrete, can move cars and houses with ease. This is the tragic intersection of climate-driven wildfires followed by climate-driven extreme precipitation. While official casualty counts are still being verified, San Bernardino County Sheriff's officials have confirmed at least 3 individuals are missing in the Wrightwood area. Search and rescue teams are using K-9 units and thermal drones to scan the debris piles, but the ongoing rain and unstable terrain have hampered efforts. For the people of Wrightwood, the spirit of Christmas has been replaced by a grim determination to survive. Local churches and community centers that weren't hit by the mud have opened their doors to act as warming stations, sharing what little supplies they have. The National Weather Service warns that the atmospheric river is slow-moving. A secondary wave of moisture is expected to hit on December 26, 2025. With the ground already saturated and the drainage channels clogged with debris, the risk of further flooding remains extreme. Local authorities are pleading with the public to stay away from the area. Do not attempt to drive to Wrightwood to check on property, said a spokesperson for Caltrans. The roads are unstable, and you are putting our first responders at risk. The state has set up a dedicated portal for disaster assistance. Residents are encouraged to visit the California Office of Emergency Services, CalOES, for real-time updates on road closures and evacuation orders. Donations for Wrightwood victims are being coordinated through the American Red Cross and the Inland Empire Community Foundation. Meanwhile, the rest of the nation celebrated Christmas in the warmth of their homes. The residents of Lidle Creek faced a harrowing battle for survival. On December 25, 2025, a catastrophic atmospheric river funneled millions of gallons of water into the narrow canyons of the San Bernardino National Forest, triggering massive debris flows that have effectively severed the community from the outside world. Lidle Creek, a community nestled in a deep canyon at the eastern end of the San Gabriel Mountains, has always been vulnerable to the elements. However, the events of late 2025 created a nightmare scenario. Following a summer of record-breaking heat and the North Fork wildfires that scorched the ridges above the canyon, the landscape was primed for disaster. The storm system that arrived on Christmas Eve was not a typical winter rain. It was a Category 5 atmospheric river, carrying a moisture load equivalent to the flow of the Mississippi River. As this moisture hit the steep, barren canyon walls, it transformed the tranquil Lidle Creek into a roaring engine of destruction. The situation turned critical at approximately 11:30 p.m. on December 24th. A massive slug of mud, boulders, and scorched timber broke loose from the upper canyons near Bonita Falls. This wall of debris, estimated by witnesses to be 15 feet high, tore down the creek bed, obliterating several footbridges and flooding the lower residential areas of the Green Valley and Happy Jack neighborhoods. The sound was unlike anything I've ever heard. It wasn't just water. It sounded like thousands of bowling balls hitting a metal shed, said Marcus Thorne, a longtime resident who barely escaped his cabin before it was swept off its foundation. The ground was vibrating so hard that pictures were falling off my walls before the water even hit. The primary artery connecting the canyon to the I-15 freeway has been washed out in at least 4 locations. Massive sinkholes have swallowed entire lanes of the asphalt. The bridge near the ranger station has been compromised, preventing emergency vehicles from reaching the northernmost residents. Mudslides have downed cellular towers and fiber-optic lines. Satellite phones and amateur radio operators are currently the only way information is leaving the canyon. The local power grid failed at 1 a.m. on Christmas Day. More critically, the creek's surging waters have destroyed the intake systems for local water companies, leaving the remaining residents without potable water. The San Bernardino County Fire Department, bolstered by Task Force 6, Urban Search and Rescue, has been working around the clock. However, the zero visibility conditions and the velocity of the water made boat rescues impossible during the night. On Christmas morning, despite the heavy rain, a Cal Firehawk helicopter managed a daring hoist rescue of a family of 4, including a 6-month-old infant, who were trapped on the roof of their vehicle near the flooded Lidle Creek firing line area. The danger in Lidle Creek is not just the water level, but the composition of the flood. Geologists explain that the burn scar from the 2025 fires has created a condition where the soil becomes liquefied. This slurry is heavy enough to move 10-ton boulders and toss SUVs like toys. In a canyon as narrow as Lidle Creek, there is nowhere for the debris to go, explains Dr. Aris Vredos, a hydrologist monitoring the basin. The canyon floor is essentially rising as it fills with mud and rocks. Homes that were safely 20 feet above the creek bed 48 hours ago are now at risk of being buried. For those who managed to evacuate before the roads disintegrated, the Glen Helen Regional Park has been established as a secondary evacuation point, with the main shelter located at the San Bernardino County Fairgrounds. The mood among evacuees is somber. Many left behind pets and Christmas gifts, but more importantly, many are unsure if they will have a home to return to. The local Lidle Creek Community Center, usually a hub for holiday potlucks, is now reportedly serving as a temporary triage center for those with minor injuries who cannot be transported to a hospital due to the road closures. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department has officially listed 5 individuals as missing from the Lidle Creek area. Search efforts are focused on a cluster of cabins near the Middle Fork trailheads that were reportedly hit by a localized landslide. Because of the ongoing instability of the mud, search teams are currently restricted to visual searches from the air and stable ground. Governor Gavin Newsom, in a press briefing from Sacramento today, specifically mentioned Lidle Creek as one of the highest priority zones for the California National Guard. We are mobilizing all available assets to reestablish a land bridge to Lidle Creek, Newsom stated. To the families trapped in the canyon, help is on the way, but the weather remains our greatest adversary. The economic impact on this small community is expected to be devastating. Lidle Creek relies heavily on weekend tourism and hikers, with the forest likely closed for months due to trail damage and the main road requiring multi-million-dollar repairs. The local economy faces a long, cold winter. The National Weather Service has extended the flash flood warning through Friday, December 26, 2025. A cold core following the atmospheric river is expected to bring snow to the higher elevations of Mt. San Antonio, Mt. Baldy, and the ridges above Lidle Creek. While snow doesn't run off immediately, the weight of the snow on top of the unstable mud could trigger further, deep-seated landslides in the coming days. Meanwhile, the scale of the storm has stunned meteorologists. By 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Christmas Day, downtown Los Angeles, USC station, recorded a staggering 6.42 inches of rain, shattering the previous daily record. In the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, the numbers were even more alarming, with some areas reporting over 11 inches of precipitation. The storm's arrival was perfectly timed with a high tide event along the coast, creating a backwater effect where swollen rivers and storm drains could not empty into the Pacific Ocean, leading to unprecedented flooding in low-lying neighborhoods. Major arteries have become impassable. A massive sinkhole swallowed 3 lanes of the I-5 freeway near Sun Valley, while the 110 freeway near Exposition Park was submerged under 4 feet of water, trapping dozens of motorists in their vehicles. Los Angeles International Airport has seen over 400 flight cancellations. Terminal 4 experienced significant flooding in the baggage claim area, and access roads to the airport were restricted to emergency vehicles only for several hours. The Metro B line service was suspended between Union Station and 7THST/Metro Center after water breached the tunnel ventilation systems, a rare occurrence that highlights the intensity of the downpour. While the city dealt with water, the canyon communities dealt with mud. Following the devastating Palisades fire earlier in 2025, the hillsides of western Los Angeles were stripped of their stabilizing vegetation. At approximately 2 a.m. on Christmas morning, a massive debris flow slammed into the Pacific Palisades, pushing several multi-million-dollar homes off their foundations. In Malibu, the Pacific Coast Highway has been closed at multiple points due to rock falls the size of SUVs, effectively isolating residents between Topanga Canyon and Leo Carrillo. The most dramatic rescues occurred along the Los Angeles River. Despite the concrete channel being designed for flood control, the water level rose to within 3 feet of the top of the banks. LAFD air operations utilized hoist maneuvers to rescue 5 unhoused individuals who were trapped on a disappearing island of debris near Atwater Village. "We are seeing water velocities that are simply unsurvivable," said LAFD Chief Kristen Crowley in a midday briefing. "Our message to the public is simple. Do not attempt to cross any flooded roadway. Turn around, don't drown." For thousands of Angelenos, Christmas dinner was served in a high school gymnasium. The American Red Cross has opened mega shelters at the Los Angeles Convention Center and the Long Beach Arena to accommodate those evacuated from flooded apartment complexes in the San Fernando Valley and Long Beach. Governor Gavin Newsom's state of emergency declaration for Los Angeles County has unlocked federal resources, but for many, the damage is already done. In Burbank, an entire neighborhood was inundated when a storm drain clogged, sending a mixture of rainwater and sewage into over 100 homes. Environmental groups are raising alarms about the first flush of the season. The massive volume of water has swept months of urban pollutants, plastics, and untreated sewage into the Santa Monica Bay. Health officials have issued a blanket closure for all Los Angeles County beaches, warning that bacteria levels are likely at 100 times the legal limit.